Chairman, we're good to go now.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rochford District Council's remote meeting of the Executive, and welcome to any members of the public watching this via the live stream. If I can take any apologies for absence, and having looked around, I think we're all here. Item 2, can I ask Sonia, please, to read out the names of any non-members attending?
We have councillors Mrs Mason, Newport, Steptoe, Hoy, Ioannou, Wilkinson and Mrs Shaw.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, can I take any declarations of interest? I'm not seeing any hands up. Right, we move into agenda item 4, the remobilisation of leisure facilities. Members, as you know, this is a special meeting of the Executive that has been scheduled to consider this single item of business. There is no provision for non-members to submit questions to special meetings of the Executive. However, given the level of interest in this item, I have exceptionally admitted one question from each of the group leaders in advance of the meeting, and a summary of the questions received has been circulated to all members. I will now deal with these questions before opening the debate on item 4, and I would like to go through each of the questions, and then I will ask Councillor Mike Webb to respond. The first question, which I will read out, is from Councillor Michael Hoy. The Council has implemented a review process over the financial aspects of the funding being given to Fusion Lifestyle. However, I have seen and had numerous complaints on social media, in person and by email, over the failure of Fusion to tell customers what is happening, including, but not limited to, problems with the £10 payment, people with wedding bookings who have not been able to contact anyone, and general queries on what is happening. What measures are being implemented to check on the customer service side of the operation to make sure our residents are dealt with promptly, politely and fairly? And if I can go over to Councillor Mike Webb to respond to this question, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton, and for Councillor Hoy for your question. As part of the contract monitoring process, officers have raised the issue of customer communication with Fusion Leisure. Fusion Leisure will send the Council a weekly log of all complaints, comments and compliments received and the outcome. This will greatly assist officers with the ongoing monitoring of the service. As is always the case, anyone that isn't satisfied with Fusion's response can contact the Council's Leisure and Cultural Services team, who will investigate their complaint further. Fusion will also monitor their social media accounts to ensure they pick up any complaints or questions raised through those channels. They'll also post an online video of what visitors can expect from a visit to one of the centres with the restrictions that will be in place. And an example of this can currently be viewed on the Whittam Leisure Centre Facebook page dated 31st of July. Thank you, Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. The second question is from Councillor Christine Mason, and she asks, the report gives emphasis and detail on the preferred option, yet although it states that alternative options were considered, there is no detail, analysis or weight given to alternative options, just a dismissive summary. The report effectively gives the preferred option as the only option and gives no alternative solutions for debate or consideration. Why were the alternative options not given equal consideration and presented to the committee? Over to Councillor Mike Webb, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton, and thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason, for the question. The council values its leisure facilities and the important role that they play in the health and well-being of residents, although this needs to be balanced and considered with the impact that COVID-19 has had on the industry nationally and the local impact on the increased costs to manage these facilities. As set out in the report, alternative options include reopening none, some, or all of the leisure facilities. The estimated cost of operating each site until March 2021 is also set out in the report. The preferred option will see a phased COVID-secure reopening of all the facilities bar the Freight House, since this is one of the buildings proposed for early redevelopment as a new community and civic space within the council's asset delivery programme. Thank you.
Councillor Webb, thank you very much indeed. The third question is from Councillor James Newport, and he asks, what representation has the council made about the continued charging of membership by Fusion to its members whilst the facilities have been closed?
Thank you, Councillor Wootton, and for Councillor Newport for the question. During normal operation, centre members can access a range of membership options or use the facilities on a pay and play basis. While the centres have been forced to close, centre members were offered a no charge freeze option and a paid freeze option. The paid option came with associated benefits, including a range of online workout resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. And the final question is from Councillor Mike Wilkinson. I am concerned that this council is looking to input nearly £500,000 into the company managing the leisure centres, when this company has already had financial support during the COVID-19 lockdown. And our district has numerous examples of businesses who are in serious need of financial support. This money is Rochford District taxpayers' money, and as such should be put to a full debate by all members of the council, especially at a time when we hear time and again how short of money the council is and that the financial gap is increasing year on year. Please can members be advised why it is that when the council is clearly able to convene an emergency meeting of the executive, consideration was not given to an emergency meeting of full council instead, so that all members could have the opportunity to properly debate this issue, and if consideration was given to an extraordinary council meeting, why was this then dismissed? Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton, and to Councillor Wilkinson for the question. Ordinarily, there would be two meetings, one for the budget element of the decision, which would be a matter for full council, and the discussion regarding the contract is a function reserved for the executive. The decision with regards to the contract would be a key decision, requiring it to be placed on the key decisions document for it to be cleared for 28 days. However, under the Local Authorities, Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information Regulation 2012, Regulation 10 allows for an exception to the 28-day rule if it is impractical to do so, subject to agreement from the Chairman of the Review Committee. The decision should be taken as a matter of urgency and not subject to call-in, because any delay will seriously prejudice the interest of the Council in that it will have an impact on the delivery of the current leisure contract, specifically delaying the reopening of the facilities. To arrange two meetings would inevitably delay the decision to reopen the facilities. As this decision is considered to be urgent, there are mechanisms under legislation and our Constitution to deal with such matters outside the normal rules of procedure. Our report explaining the reason for taking an urgent budget decision will be made to the next full council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb.
Chairman, if I may.
If I can go over to the monitoring officer.
Yes. Chairman, if I may, just to reinforce and add to Councillor Webb's response. Yes, he's correct. The contractual matters of this kind is a function reserved to the executive under the Local Authorities Functions and Responsibilities Regulations 2000, and budgetary matters are for full council to decide. As Councillor Webb has pointed out, there is a mechanism in place to allow the executive to take urgent decisions. It was not practical in this case to call full council meeting because of the significant impact of the delay on the contract and the service provision. And we need to, I just want to reiterate the agreement the review chairman has been sought and obtained as required by the requirements. So for the sake of clarity, Chairman, if there was no urgency for this decision to be taken, the ordinary route, as Councillor Webb has pointed out, would have been to take the decision to Council with regards to the budget element and then to yourselves, members of the exec, in relation to the contractual matters. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that further clarification to our monitoring officer. Thank you. And I will now move to item 4, which is headed Remobilisation of Leisure Facilities, and that is to consider the report of the Assistant Director, Assets and Commercial, relating to the reopening of leisure facilities within the Rochford district. But before I move to Councillor Webb, can I just remind members that there are 2 exempt appendices to the report. If you need to make reference to either of these appendices, can you please indicate before speaking, as it will be necessary to move a recommendation to exclude the press and public first. So I go across to Councillor Mike Webb to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Our leisure facilities are very important to our residents, and this paper sets out how we are getting ready to reopen them following the period of enforced closure as a result of COVID-19. Let's not forget that before March, Clements Hall Leisure Centre was seeing some 50,000 visits per month, and Rayleigh Leisure Centre some 10,000. These are key component parts of our local economy and supporting the health and well-being of our residents. It is worth reminding ourselves that COVID has delivered a significant economic impact within the leisure sector in the UK, both public and private. The period of enforced closure has resulted in revenue lines collapsing, and while the industry has placed staff on furlough to reduce staffing costs, many of the fixed costs to maintain the facilities have remained. The pandemic is also projected to have a longer-term impact on the industry due to the requirements necessary to ensure facilities are made COVID-19 secure, and because of demand issues arising from site users having confidence in returning to use them. Industry research shows that activity levels are only expected to rise to 60% of pre-COVID levels by March 2021, with a best case scenario of up to 88% of customers returning, and less optimistic forecasts indicating that this could be as low as only 40%. This has resulted in a substantial funding gap across the industry, not just in the district, but nationwide. All the council's leisure sites closed on 20th of March 2020, as required by government legislation in response to COVID-19. The government announced on 9th of July 2020 that leisure centres would be able to reopen from the 25th of July 2020. Industry guidance accompanied this, setting out the adaptations that will be required at leisure centres, ultimately limiting the offer across the facilities and reducing the number of users that could access the centres. This report sets out the process undertaken by the council's leisure operator to enable a phased, suitably adjusted COVID-19 secure reopening. It also sets out the commercial considerations that are required as a result of the impact of COVID-19 during the transition period to March 2021 and potentially beyond. We know that government expects leisure to be open, as do our residents, especially the swimmers and the schools that use the swimming pool as well. So in preparation for reopening, Fusion have provided the council with their COVID-19 secure risk assessment, which has been viewed by the council's health and safety officer and who confirmed that they were following government guidance. Officers from the council's leisure and cultural services team and environmental health team are carrying out site visits of both leisure centres this week. Officers from leisure and cultural services team will be revisiting sites directly before reopening and on an ongoing basis. And a further visit by environmental health will take place once the centres have reopened. All sites will be deep cleaned before reopening. Site visits have taken place elsewhere, for example in Braintree, and I can confirm that COVID secure measures are now in place in that facility, which is also run by Fusion. Given the financial outlay, this was not an easy decision to make, but we want to protect our facilities for our residents and get them open as soon as possible. This work also allows us to support the workforce in our district. These are not just numbers, but represent people's jobs. If the council did not provide the requested subsidy for each site that it wishes to reopen, Fusion may argue that the current contract is frustrated. In that case, operation of the sites would revert to the council. It is considered unviable for the council to operate leisure services directly in the short to medium term due to a lack of available resources or expertise within the council. This would result in no leisure facilities being available for our residents until the council was able to secure another service provider. It is not considered likely that another external leisure provider would be able to take on a contract to deliver leisure services in the district at such short notice. If financial support is agreed tonight, Fusion's Lifestyle's actual financial performance will be reviewed monthly with external consultants on a fully open book basis. This will require Fusion Lifestyle's management accounts to be submitted setting out a detailed breakdown of actual costs incurred and income generated for each site. These will be compared to the baseline projections above and any variations interrogated by officers and advisors to ensure that they can be reasonably explained by Fusion Lifestyle. Finally, we will enter into negotiations with Fusion to agree a new commercial arrangement for the operation of the facilities beyond March 2021 and report to the Executive in December 2020 for approval of that new arrangement. So to conclude, I'm pleased to say that we are looking to be able to reopen Clements Hall, both wet and dry side, the Mill, Castle Hall and Rayleigh Leisure Centre. And I can give my thanks to the officers, particularly Matt and Naomi, who have been working incredibly hard behind the scenes, along with Mark Aldous. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. And before I open it up to executive questions, can I ask Councillor Simon Smith to comment, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Webb has given a very thorough précis of an awful lot of detail and work that has gone into the position that we're in today. It's not been plain sailing, and just for the sake of clarity, all of the questions that have been put by the leaders of the other groups, that they were all considered in various forms and various details. It's not a comfortable place in which we find ourselves, but we have to remember that this is a situation that is being experienced in lots of industries and lots of environments up and down the country. The money that is quoted, the 429,500, is a large sum of money without a doubt. But we have to remember that for all our grumbles and concerns about Fusion, and they are many, and as I mentioned, highlighted by the questions that we've had already, we have to remember that the law has changed. The law says you can't have you can't have your swimming pools open for a while, and now it says if you are going to open them, you can only have half as many people in the pool. You've got to have the distance. There's issues about the catering. It's a real problem for Fusion, and I do feel for them as a business and the situation that we've found ourselves in. But businesses are starting to open up. Our residents do have requirements, and we're here to service those requirements. As Councillor Webb has said, this isn't a blank check that we are writing. This is independent. This is going to be subject to independent review on a monthly basis. And in terms of the mechanism of that review, Naomi can give you some detail later on if that's required. But just to highlight this problem ongoing, we're looking to open up the leisure facility as best as Fusion are able in compliance with COVID-19 guidelines right now. We don't know how long those guidelines are going to stay in place. We don't know whether we're going to have better or worse situations. So we've got to look at the vision for how things are right now. we're very conscious of an ongoing financial commitment beyond the end of this current financial year. And as Councillor Webb has said, we will look to minimise or mitigate or completely remove that burden from April 21. And that will involve more information coming to council by December this year, so that we can work out what is going to happen, what is the best way forward. So I am supportive of this report, but it's with a heavy heart that we spend this sort of money, but it is money that, through the good and positive financial management of the council, we find ourselves able to provide, so that the services that we provide to our residents can be maintained. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And now I will open up questions from other members of the executive, and I believe Councillor Cheryl Rowe would like to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. I do struggle with this, Chairman, to be honest, but I do have a couple of questions. How do we make sure that the money is ring-fenced for Rochford District Council sites, should this be agreed tonight? We're being asked a very big ask here, and we need to look after the residents' interest as well as the interests of the council itself. Do you want me to ask 2 questions at a time, Mike, or would you prefer 1 at a time?
Councillor
Happy for
Webb.
both at the same time, Councillor Rowe.
Okay, thank you. My concerns also lie with the cleanliness of certain sites, especially that of Clements Hall. It hasn't been that well kept in the past, and I've had numerous complaints from residents. What measures are being taken to make sure these sites are exceptionally clean? And I will make a point that the leader and the deputy leader, myself, will be visiting this site from time to time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. I mean, if I start answering, then maybe Matt, if you want to chip in as well, please feel free to do so. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this isn't just an issue that's facing us in Rochford. Southend Council are grappling with similar issues, as are Braintree, and indeed Braintree Council have recently agreed £700,000 to go towards the reopening of their leisure centres. So there's going to be close scrutiny of the finances that we grant to Fusion. Absolutely, I know Naomi's already working on that, and through the open book process, we'll have a clear sight of all the financial dealings, and indeed what the traffic of people coming through all of our leisure services. And in terms of the cleanliness, I mean, we've already touched upon that, but certainly that's something that in the report is very clearly outlined, the work that Fusion have been doing to make our sites COVID secure. Just some of the things that they're working on, for example, will be hand sanitisation stations at entry and exit throughout the centres, a one-way system in the leisure centres, spray and blue cloths in the gym area for both users and staff to wipe down surfaces and equipment. Gym equipment will be spaced out and clearly marked with white tape. Changing rooms will be closed when needed and only certain toilets available. And staff will be constantly cleaning and wiping down high touch points. In addition to this, I know that Matt Hardwhite is speaking to senior officers within Fusion to emphasise where there's been lapses in the past, where concerns have been raised by members in the past. We do acknowledge that, but actually I think once you've obviously read the report, the work that Fusion have been doing has been incredible to bring these premises up so they are COVID secure, and I have full confidence in Fusion going forward. Matt and Amy, if you'd like to add to anything that I've said.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Chairman, through you, in terms of the cleaning, I think Councillor Webb's covered it in some detail. Just really to add that I hear and I note Councillor Rowe's concerns on the cleanliness issue. We have raised it at some length of detail with Fusion. We'll continue to do so. We do, as I say, note those concerns. We will continue to address that with Fusion, carefully monitored going forward. I'm more than happy to report back to the portfolio holder and other members on progress once we reopen as well. I'm not sure if Naomi wants to add anything further to the open book process, but just to say that this is a recognised process in terms of comparing budget with actuals and identifying any variances in there. And as Councillor Webb set out in his introduction, we will be working with industry recognised experts to assist us with that approach to analyse that the open book process going forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for those responses. If I can move to Councillor Ian Ward.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's very interesting. I have to go back to the questions that were asked at the very start. And I believe all of those questions actually, we have all, how can I put it, agonised over them before. These are ones that have come up in discussions that we have had coming into this meeting. And, you know, I fully understand them. And, you know, there's a few things that obviously are causing us all anxiety. I think the most important one, as far as I'm concerned, and has been echoed, is the resilience of fusion going forward. And I think that's something that has not only occupied us, but I'm sure it's occupying quite a few other councils up and down the country. You know, when we're talking of these options, you know, I'm looking, if I can just refer to page 4.5 and table 1 and the difference in 4.6, page 4.6 table 2, you know, we're looking at least worst options here. And, you know, there's an £83,000 difference between the two. And I think it would be very, very useful if either Simon or Mike would like to, you know, illuminate everybody, because this is an important difference, that we are sort of having to choose the least worst of some really horrible options to look at. And I think that's very, very important for everybody to understand that. But going on to, you know, other things with regard to our residents, in regards to the various things that the government are trying to push. And I do hope that where they have contributed towards the arts, they will look to make support and contributions towards, you know, district and borough councils who are having to subsidise these costs at the moment, because, yeah, it's a very, very important factor. You know, we have an obesity crisis, and it's one of the things which is the comorbidities, which is very severe where we've got coronavirus. And it's very important to have fitness outlets for people. So, you know, we're looking at the benefits to our residents as well. So I don't know if I can pass over to both Councillor Mike Webb and Councillor Simon Smith, Chairman, in regards to those two items.
Councillor Webb, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. I think just to reiterate what Councillor Ward said, this decision was not arrived at easily. We debated it, we agonised over it, we considered the various options, because the amount of money that we are talking about is a huge amount of money. But ultimately, we felt that the value to our residents was greater, and the risk by not investing here was that our leisure centres would close. And once they are closed, it will be much harder to reopen them. Ultimately, I hope we've struck the right balance here in terms of reopening Clements Hall, not just the dry side, but the wet side, which, as I've mentioned, is used by not just adult swimming schools and swimming clubs, but by a number of local schools as well. I thought that was extremely important to reopen that. But also the mill providing a community facility within the Rayleigh area, but I hope that will also be used by residents within the wider district. Certainly, it's a fantastic facility, and I hope that that will come back to reach as many people as possible. But certainly, it was not an easy decision to arrive at, but I hope we've struck the right balance here in terms of the proposals and in terms of what we're reopening for the benefit of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. I wonder whether Councillor Daniel Efty wants to now come in with some questions. You're on mute, Councillor Efty.
On mute. That's better, isn't it? Can you hear me now? Thank you, Chairman. Got a couple of questions. Page 4.2, 3.5. Don't know if some capable of putting it up there, or I'll read from it. It's proposed, therefore, that council negotiate a new commercial contract with effect from 1st of April 2021. It does say that in this report, and it's something we're looking at, but it doesn't mention anybody else. I know you're saying it's going to be difficult for someone to take over from Fusion when we go to new procurement, but we need something in the background. Just, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen with Fusion. They might not want to do it. It might get too expensive for us. We need something else there. So can I ask the officers to at least look at other leisure providers for this, if that can be done. Also, page 4.7, 6.3. 6.3. Quick notes. So I'm asking about the alternatives that might be available. So that needs to come back to us, that we do need that, and we're looking at that in December, aren't we? So that was that. The 4.8, 8.3. Yeah, the grant funding, definitely need to look at that with our officers. I know Ian mentioned that, and also Cheryl. Are we keeping an eye on the reduced times? I know we're going to start off with reduced times, but if the leisure centres become busier, which I hope they will do, because I've got every faith in Fusion to be able to keep them clean and everything's going to be going well, will they be looking at extending the times? Because surely you'd want more people to go through the doors to extend the times earlier and later, like it is now. I have looked at the Facebook pages on Billericay and stuff, and they're all saying how lovely and clean it is. So I'm sure they will keep that up. And that's about it. Oh yeah, and what does the dry side mean? You mentioned the dry side quite a few times. What does that actually mean? Is that other stuff is just as well as gyms, or is it just gyms? That's enough for me at the moment. So it's quite a bit there.
Councillor Webb, do you want to lead the responses?
Thank you. So, yeah, I made a note of your questions there. Thank you, Councillor FD. So in terms of question one, I think if we'd gone to the market and followed our existing procurement framework, we would be struggling, because the market at the moment is just not there. It's not just Fusion that are struggling. This is a nationwide issue. If we went out to the market, I don't think anyone would be bidding for any leisure contracts at the moment. So we're doing the pragmatic thing, which is looking to delay going out to the market by a single year, but in that time we expect and we hope that the leisure industry will bounce back. What that means is that when we go out to the market, our offer is much better, and we could then realistically expect to see, I would hope, at least 3 providers looking to win that contract. Obviously we can't shoehorn them in, it's an open competitive process, but I would fully expect that once we've had that additional year, then we would see a strong competitive process between, I would hope, at least 3 providers. In terms of your second question, absolutely, I would expect that funding to be sought. I would hope that we would be pushing central government for that. Certainly where there was funding that was given to the arts, for example, I know there were rumours that there would be a similar funding package going to local authorities for leisure centres. I've not heard anything more about that, but I certainly think that's something that maybe through Councillor Wootton, maybe we can be picking up again to put some more pressure on central government for that potential funding stream. In terms of your third question, I would expect that Fusion Leisure would expand their opening times. Yes, absolutely. This is an initial offer, but I'm confident that the public will come through the doors again, and that as they do, those initial opening times will be expanded. And finally, in terms of your final comment, the dry side is simply the areas that don't include the swimming pool, primarily the gyms, but also a number of the fitness classes as well. If Matt's got anything to add to any of those comments. Thank you, Matt.
Nothing to add, thank you, Chairman.
Could I just quickly come back on the we say the gyms and the fitness classes? Have they got any sort of plan in place when and if they are able to open stuff like basketball and badminton and squash and things like that? Are they looking at that at all at the moment, or is it just concentrating on gyms and wetside.
It's gyms initially because that's what the guidance was initially.
Yeah, I know.
So some of the other sports, for example, where a ball's got to be passed between competitors, that's been slightly later in terms of opening, but that will be being looked at as well, and would open when we are able and ready to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb and Councillor Efty. Moving on to Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have no questions. They've all been answered. I've been reading the report. I've read it several times. I've anguished over this decision. I really have. It really is a worry, and it is the least of the, I guess, the least worst way we can go with this. Fortunately, we do have the reserves, mainly due to our careful budgeting in the past. And I really think, especially with the warm weather, it's brought it home how many people need to know how to swim. And it's very important that we open the wet side as soon as possible. We don't want any incidents around our coastline. And Chairman, I will fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. If I can come back to Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Webb has covered most of the points. Just in terms of the agonisation of the decision that we're coming to. I mean, taking the freight house, for instance, you know, at the moment, even if we opened it, there aren't activities able to take part in that because the council has been well organised. There has been an amount of progress happening on the assets programme through the lockdown period, and it would seem like a foolish decision to open Freight House at some stage in the future when things are relaxed, immediately to start working on how to relocate those activities again, because within 12 months or just over 12 months, we're likely to be effectively starting the redevelopment of that site. We do have facilities within the district that are capable of rehousing or relocating most of the activities there. So that was one challenge. The other thing that we would have started to be doing right now anyway was to talk about the new leisure contract anyway. The leisure contract is a big item for this council. It represents the biggest part of our assets, and the finances around it are really significant. And for us to decide what goes into that contract takes a long time, and the formalities of the legal process are quite involved. I think it was I can't remember whether it's Councillor Hoy or Councillor Newport talked about the quality of communication from Fusion at the moment. You know, since the last contract was let, things have evolved around social media and so on. There are and we've certainly seen some issues with Fusion around the quality of their communication. They're things that we can specify within a new contract, things we would be talking about now. But for us to consider taking on a new contract for April 21, I just couldn't see that being a sensible move in any form. The marketplace is chaotic at the moment, to say the least, and a good number of activities, as I mentioned earlier, within the leisure industry simply can't take place by law. We have made representations, I believe, to central government, and there's certainly been some representations mentioned in the media to central government about further grants for this industry, because it's not just a Rochford problem; it's a national problem. Leisure is, and it does need some support. So, I am happy to support this report, but it's not a happy recommendation. It's the best solution and the most pragmatic solution to support our residents, and the council's in a position to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I don't see any other hands, in which case I would like to add a few comments and ask a few questions. Throughout this report, there is reference to the word preferred. In itself, no problem with that word, but a bit like Councillor Williams, I read it, I kept on reading it, and I looked at it and I thought that implies that we are comfortable with what we are doing, in the sense it is a preferred option. It is a choice of the least worst option in terms of the financial bailout that we're talking about. And I would like to propose, certainly in the decisions being recommended, that we replace the word preferred with the word selected. It is the selected option. And that was the consideration. There were a multitude of options, but we did, as other members have said, agonize over the least worst. And we are in a position where we are damned if we do, and we are damned if we do not. It is as simple as that. But I believe that at the heart of everything we do is our residents, and health, well-being, fitness and leisure is an element of life that is being missed by many in our district. We mustn't overlook the fact that to keep these premises closed was also a very costly option. And obviously we were looking at that as a possibility. I've heard the concerns over fusion. If ever there was going to be microscopic forensic testing of them over the next few months, that is coming. Because I believe on various fronts, we need to make sure that our money is being spent wisely, appropriately, and in the best interest to perpetuate the provision for leisure facilities within the Rochford district. I certainly want there to be no reliance, and in fact, no doubt by anyone that there will be continued funding beyond April 21. When we move into our new financial year. It is by no means a given. It will be based on what we see over the next few months, and we will continue to be supportive if Fusion demonstrate to us that they are doing the best to continue with leisure services in a top-rate world-class standard within Rochford district. And I have to say that early reports in other districts are positive. But I want there to be no doubt that we will be having a microscopic view of what is going on. And I will be the biggest mystery shopper that walks around our various sites to see what is going on. And I know that other members will be doing exactly the same. If I can come back to the reports, please. I'd like to ask the Section 151 officer, please. When we talk about the support that has been given to us from central government, we're talking about 1.011 million. Have we any idea, please, Naomi, what element of funding we will still have available to offset the provision within the council itself? That's my first question. If I turn to 4.10, I have to say that I'm delighted that officers and the portfolio holder have recognised the need that we need to have independent professional scrutiny. And that is mentioned in 4.10 and 5.8. So thank you very much indeed. To the wider member population, I would like to reassure you that we will be reporting back and providing an update on progress regularly. The next opportunity will be in October at the council meeting, when I provide a report on progress since it opened. And I have to endorse what Councillor Webb said and Councillor Smith. There are a number of unknowns which frankly are out of our control and certainly out of Fusion's control. So that is really all I wanted to say, but I do have that one question to our Section 151 officer, if that is possible, because it is coupled, the bailout, which is significant, as I see it, is potentially three components. It is the residual of any government funding we've received so far. It is the potential funding that we may receive from central government towards leisure, any provision that the government announced nationally, and of course, supported from our own reserves. I wonder whether you can just help me on that, please, Naomi.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so we have recently submitted revised estimates of the financial pressures back to central government. I will be circulating a note to all members in the next day or so. So I won't elaborate in great detail in terms of all of those, but as per previous returns, we are anticipating that the total pressures facing the council this financial year at the moment are likely to exceed the amount of government grant funding that we have been given already, which, as you've already rightly said, is just over 1 million. There are obviously a number of assumptions within those projections, and most notably this most significant other pressure we've been reporting so far is the loss of car parking income, which we are obviously keeping a close eye on as well. That was in the region of sort of £700,000 to £750,000 of income that we're projecting to lose. Having said that, there is a further provision that government have set out at a high level, although they haven't yet issued any detail, that is committing to subsidise some of those income losses. So we are expecting that in addition to the £1 million of grant funding that we've already been given, we are expecting to be able to recoup some of those income losses separately as well. But because government hasn't actually issued any of the detail of that yet, I'm not in a position to say exactly what level of financial support will be offered for that. Yeah, it's difficult to give a precise sort of number to you at this stage, but as I said, as we have said previously, the total financial pressures we are expecting will exceed £1 million, and I will be issuing a further detailed note setting out all of those financial pressures in the next day or so. As other councillors have alluded to, we have got the option of some earmarked reserves which we can draw on as a last resort during the financial year, were the government funding not to be sufficient to meet all of our financial pressures. But it is still quite early in a stage in the financial year, and as I've said, we've had to make a number of assumptions and estimates within our projections, so we will be closely monitoring that as the year progresses as well. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Naomi. I've got some other people wishing to come in, and I'll come to other members in a moment. But I will be asking, subject to agreement with my two amendments on the decisions, my first amendment will be on 1.1. I would like to see the word preferred replaced with the word selected. And my other suggested amendment is on 1.3, where on the fourth line, beyond the 2020/21, and I would like to insert the words, hopefully with non-reliance on RDC subsidy.
Chairman, if I can come in there, I'm happy to second both of those amendments. Thank you.
Chairman, if I just may come in, just for ease of proceedings, you have made amendments to two separate recommendations. I would suggest that you amend each recommendation in turn. So you would, it's been so for example, Councillor Rowe has seconded your amendments to those recommendations. So for the first recommendation, I can ask Sonia to read out the new wording for you, and you should proceed to a debate on whether that amendment is accepted. If it's accepted, then you can then go to the vote to accept that as the new substantive motion and vote that as the new recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that intervention. I don't see any other hands, so I will ask Sonia, if I may, to read out the amended recommendation so that we can debate that.
Sonia, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
I'm not. Can you not hear me?
Can now.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So my understanding is that in terms of 1.1, it should now read that following consultation with the portfolio holder for community and the portfolio holder for finance, the selected option set out in paragraph 5 of this report for the reopening of leisure facilities within the district be approved. And do you want me to read out 1.3?
Chairman, I think we should take each recommendation in turn.
I think in line with your
Okay,
recommendation, Angela. First of all, is anyone wishing to speak against that suggestion, that recommendation? I don't see any hands, so I believe we need to vote on that as a now substantive recommendation.
You take a vote as to the amendment being accepted, whether it's accepted. So you take a vote on the new on the word selected being inserted instead of using the word preferred.
Okay, and I was going to go over to Sonia to read out the roll call of names, please.
thank you. So members, if you could just, if you want a recorded vote, if you could indicate that. Otherwise...
Sonia, can I just interrupt you for a moment? You're very, very faint.
Okay, I will speak up, Chairman. Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay, so can I ask you please to indicate if you would like a recorded vote? Otherwise, can you please vote either for or against the amendment to the motion, or if you'd like to abstain. So Councillor FD.
No recorded vote, and for the amendment, please.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for, please.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Sonia, sorry, it's no and for.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
No recorded vote and for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much. No and for, please.
Thank you. And Councillor Wootton.
No and for.
That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Sonia. If we can move on to the recommendation 1.2, and I will read it out. That additional budget of up to 420.
Chairman, sorry, we need to vote on the second.
Sorry,
amendment.
Chairman. Can we, just to be clear on the procedure, you can, now that amendment has been accepted, you can take a vote on the new substantive motion, or if you wish to do so, you can deal with all the amendments first, and then we'll go back to voting on the new substantive motions.
Okay, all right. Shall we take my proposal then on 1.3? I think that's what the monitoring officer is suggesting, that we look at 1.3 in terms of an amendment. And just to remind Sonia that I wish to propose that we insert after 2020/21 on the fourth line with the words, hopefully with non-reliance on RDC subsidy.
Right, so just to read out the proposed amendment then to that recommendation. That in consultation with the portfolio holder for community and portfolio holder for finance, the Assistant Director, Commercial and Assets initiates negotiations with Fusion Lifestyle to agree a new commercial arrangement for the operation of the facilities beyond the 2020-21 financial year, hopefully with non-reliance on RDC subsidy, and brings a report to the Executive in December 2020, setting out the terms of the proposed agreement.
Thank you, Sonia. And I don't see any hands. Is there anyone that wishes to speak?
Chairman,
on
if I
that?
may, can I just ask for your Councillor Mrs. Rowe whether she had agreed to second that amendment?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
I don't see any hands on the asking to speak. So in that case, can we take, Sonia, that suggested amendment?
Councillor Smith, Chairman.
Yeah, I'm not wishing to change your motion, but just to ensure that members are fully aware, executive falls, I believe, 2nd of December, and with the publication for deadlines that are required, obviously that's going to take us back into November. Then there's the time to actually do the discussion. I don't want to change anything, but I think members just need to be aware of I've just put it as the fragility of that date and the ambition that your amendment has. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. That is why I really wanted to insert the word hopefully, because I think that gives the opportunity for flexibility in the light of superb performance by the operator, because I want real focus to be placed on performance over the next few months. But I did feel that hopefully ought to give that flexibility that you indeed make the point on. I don't see any other hands. So in terms of that proposed amendment, could I ask you, Sonia, to go through the roll call again?
Of course. So Councillor FD.
No recorded vote and for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote and for.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Sonia. It's no and for.
Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
And Councillor Wootton.
No and for.
That's unanimous for, Chairman.
So I believe that now, unless there are any other amendments that are being proposed, I think that enables us to take all the decisions on block, unless anyone disagrees or wants to take them separately.
Chairman, I've just got a question. If that's okay.
Councillor FD. Councillor FD.
Yeah, with just let me go back to the wording. With 3.5, the second bit I didn't actually read out, the early termination, the flexibility to manage relationships with Fusion Lifestyle. What notice would that be written into the contract? What notice we're going to give? Or we got any idea what notice we might want to give? Or am I being a little bit too Matt? Really?
Yes, Matt will answer that one.
Chairman, if I may, I think we're probably getting into quite detailed discussion of the contract negotiation. Wouldn't want to give any commercial information away at this time, but it's something I can certainly discuss through the portfolio holder.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Councillor FD. Right. Are we in a position to now take all recommendations subject to those amendments that we've agreed? Can we now take them on block? Unless I see any hands, I take it that no one.
Chair, if I may, I just wanted to point out that the word preferred is also used in recommendation 1.2, and given that you wanted to change it in the first one, you might also want to change it in the second.
Thank you, Naomi. I hadn't actually picked that. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. And I'd even underlined it. I missed it in the, well, I think we need to go through on 1.2, please. And I'm making a proposal that we replace the word in 1.2 with selected. Do I have a second?
I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Okay, and have we got anyone wishing to speak before I ask Sonia to take it to the call? No, I can't see any names. Sonia, would you be kind enough to go through the list of us?
Right, so Councillor FD, please.
No recorded vote and for the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote and for.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
Councillor Wotton.
No and for.
Again, that's unanimous, Chairman, for.
Thank you very much, and a particular thank you to our Section 151 officer for pointing that out, because that was an important change there. Thank you.
Chairman, if can I come in as
Councillor-
well?
Councillor Ward.
Yes, well, seeing as we're looking at preferred, we should go then to section of 4.5, item 5, heading preferred option. That should be changed, I would suggest, to selected option.
In terms of the report, there are a number of places that the word preferred appear. I certainly take your point. I particularly would like the recommendations changed, but the report is actually the report. I think it would, whilst I note your comment, I think it would be a bit onerous to start changing a report which we've actually debated. We just modified the recommendations. Is that a correct view, Angela?
Chairman, I would say yes. I mean, you made an amendment to the motion, and you have set out your reasons why you prefer. Sorry, not use the word prefer. Why you're using the word select instead of prefer. It is. I mean, the report is written as it is written, and you have made your point as to why you would like to use the word select instead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, I think we can now go to taking all the recommendations on block as they now stand. So, Sonia, what are you proposing to do? Read every recommendation out?
I can do so if members would like.
No, not necessary, Chairman.
Believe it or not, we've read these recommendations so many times.
Yep. Okay. Now I'm happy with that. If members are happy with that, in that case, we go straight to the roll call, please.
Councillor FD.
No recorded vote and for the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Sonia. No and a very reluctant for.
Councillor Smith.
No recorded vote and for the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Yes, thank you, Sonia. It's no and for.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Sonia. No and for.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Sonia. Not an easy decision, but that's again no and for. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Wotton.
And that's a no and for from me.
That's unanimous for, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Sonia. And just before I close the meeting, can I thank everyone for their contributions, officers, for the work that you've actually put in to bring all this together, and all member colleagues. And thank you for a very good debate. I was very keen that we did debate it, which is exactly what we've done. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. And with that, I will close this executive meeting. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you.